First flags we hoist when on the committee boat are the club burgee, followed by committee boat on station, followed by the mark rounding, whether it to be port or starboard. So the mark rounding on today's example is to starboard with your green flag. These are hoisted to the cross trees on the committee boat. With a simple white chard attachment. We've got burgee, committee boat on station, and the starboard hand mark rounding. That's going to be right for today anyway, isn't it? You're going to go.
Yeah.
Okay, we're now applying the first flag of the sequence, which is the asymmetric and cats. The halyard to the aft of the boom is the one we use, and the witchard clips. Unclip very simply. Don't let go of the halyard, so it shoots up to the top, and then attach to both ends, and a simple loop back around the cleat, ready to hoist. And that is as difficult as it gets for the cats and asymmetric flag. Okay, the next one going down the boom is the monohulls. It's the white triangle with the black stripe. Once again, we undo the halyard. And we take the end of the halyard that actually isn't through the cleat, attach the witchard clip, and then that is the top. The tail of each flag is the longer piece of string. And if my phone rings when we're doing this, don't panic, because the kettle's still on. And then we just reapply that. So that's your second flag in the sequence, monohulls, ready to go. Last in the sequence, in the current sequence for racing at Thorpe Bay, is the sandhopper flag, the white square with the black crosses, and once again following the same procedure, undoing the longer halyard that doesn't go through the actual cleat. Again, you do get Muppet of the day if you let the halyard go. And there, we now have 3 flags for the sequence ready to be raised. Okay, we do have some extra flags we have to put up, and they are the preparatory and something else. Okay, the flag that does the most work in the sequence is the preparatory, otherwise known as the blue Peter, which is the blue square with the white square inserted. And this goes on again onto the halyard system, exactly the same as all the other flags. And that's there, ready to go. Now the blue Peter is the one that goes up on every start sequence, and it goes up on your 2 minutes, down on your 1 minute, and then class flag down on your start. So if you ever see a Blue Peter flag flying, you're somewhere within your 2-minute time sequence, between 2 and 1 minute. Okay, we're now going to go through the full start sequence. We start with the asymmetrics and cats on the timer countdown for 3 minutes to the start. Then the class flag is hoisted. The man on the horn at the timer then does the countdown and blasts the horn.
Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So in 3 minutes, the class flag goes up. On our sequence, that is the asymmetrics and cats, which is the first in the start sequence. So now, with the asymmetrics and cats class flag flying, anybody in the water should know that that is somewhere between your 3 and 2 minute timing countdown. On 2 minutes, the preparatory is then hoisted on the countdown from the timekeeper, and another horn is blasted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So once again, any sailor on the water should know, with the preparatory hoisted and a class flag flying, that they are in the 2 minute to 1 minute countdown period. On 1 minute, the preparatory, or Blue Peter as it's also known, on the countdown from the timer and the horn blasted, is then lowered. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So once again, we are just left with the class flag flying, having the preparatory dropped, and that means with just the class flag flying, you're in the last minute. The last minute to the asymmetrics and cats start, the only flag flying is the asymmetrics and cats flag. So on the countdown and the horn, then this is lowered, but also at the same time on our start sequence, the next class flag goes up at the same time. So you're down to the start of the asymmetrics and cats, the flag is lowered. The monohulls of the next start, their flag is raised. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the asymmetrics and cats should now be crossing the line, heading for their windward mark. And the monohulls should now be looking to see that they are then in their start sequence with between 3 and 2 minutes to go. And this is where the same sequence is followed with the preparatory or Blue Peter flag, which then goes up on the 2 minutes.
Okay, good.
And again, a sound signal on 2 minutes.
Go up.
5, 4, 3, 1. Okay, the preparatory is now raised, so that means for the monohulls they can see their class flag and they can see the preparatory or Blue Peter raised, so they should now know that they are between 2 minutes and 1 minute for their start sequence. On 1 minute, the preparatory or Blue Peter is then lowered. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now the monohulls, having seen that they had the preparatory and their class flag flying, knew that they were between 2 and 1 minute. Now they've seen it's reduced to just their class flag, so they should now know that they are now coming down to their start time. So they are between 1 minute and their start. Just as previous, the class flag for the monohulls is now raised, lowered, and the sandhopper flag, class flag, is then raised on the countdown from the timekeeper. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the monohulls should now be heading for their windward mark, and the sandhoppers now know from their class flag being raised, they are now with 3 minutes, between 3 and 2 minutes on their time sequence for their start. And again, that is followed by 2 minutes, the Blue Peter or the preparatory flag being hoisted on the 2 minute sound time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So once again, you see a class flag flying. This time it's the sandhoppers. You see the Blue Peter or the preparatory up. So you should now look at that and see you are between 2 and 1 minute on your time sequence. At 1 minute, the Blue Peter or preparatory again is then lowered. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the sandhoppers should now know their class flag is the only flag flying again after the preparatory has been lowered, so they are then in their last minute and they wait for the sound signal for their start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to demonstrate now one of the simplest race starts, and that's the mass start. There's just a 3 minute time sequence, so I should do this simply by laying the flags down, so visually this is the same for every start sequence, and you should try and memorise this a bit easier. So for 3 minutes on a mass start, the mass start flag is flown, so that's what you'll see up the flag staff. On the 2 minute sequence, you will see the mass start flag and the preparatory or the Blue Peter flying. At 1 minute, the Blue Peter or the preparatory is lowered, so you're then left with just the mass start flag flying. And on the start, the mass start is then lowered. And that's as simple as all the class racing is for following the flag sequence. Now when you run a race start, obviously not everybody is quite there on the start line on time, and some are a little bit premature. So we have what is known as the Chris Clark stick, and that has the individual recall flag, which is the white flag with the blue cross on one end. And if Chris is then encouraging others to cross the line early, there's the general recall flag, which is the blue and yellow triangle. These are held on a pole by either end. We have them rolled up, and this could be done by the man on the time keeping who's standing in the boat, or a second person spotting the line. And if someone is seen to infringe the start line, then at the time of the start, there is then a second sound signal, and the individual recall flag is then raised, so Chris Clark can look back down the line and see that he was over. Had Chris encouraged others across the start line, there would then be the general recall flag unrolled and raised, and then two sound sequences, and that means that the whole race has been recalled and the start sequence has to start all over again.
Go.
Once Chris Clark has rectified his wrong and come round back across the start line, then the individual recall flag and the Muppet holding it can now lower it.
Okay, go.
Okay, now the racers are doing their laps, and you've been well fed from the galley slave. Comes a time in the race where everybody's getting a bit long in the tooth, so usually it's about an hour and a half's racing. The shortened course flag, which is the white flag with the blue square, with a sound signal that is then raised. To signify any boats coming up to the line are now going to be crossing the finish line, and that stays up for the duration until the last boat crosses the line. Okay, the postponement flag is obviously if your galley slave hasn't made the tea in time, or there's wind changes or shifts, or for any reason the race officer feels he cannot start the race on time, then the postponement flag is raised. It's the oblong red and white flag. When that is raised with a sound horn, that means that the race is postponed indefinitely. The lowering of the postponement flag with a sound signal means you are then 1 minute from going into the given start sequence.